Well, people will trickle in as we do this presentation, but it is 9 o'clock. I want to welcome everybody to the Clinton Region Business Roundtable. I am Andy Sokolovich, the Vice President of Economic Development for the Clinton Regional Development Corporation. We offer these resources monthly where we bring in individuals who are subject matter experts focusing on economic development, business development, and entrepreneurial development. So today I'm excited to introduce Joel Youngs. Joel Youngs is the Regional Director for the Small Business Development Center here in Iowa. The Eastern Iowa Small Business Development Center has served Scott, Clinton, Jackson, Muscatine counties since 1985, and it is one of 13 centers in the Iowa SBDC network. I will say this, Joel is definitely a subject matter expert, especially during the entire pandemic. His job has morphed into being an expert on Paycheck Protection Program and the economic injury disaster loans, as well as some other capital resources. So I'm going to go ahead and shut up now and turn it over to Joel Youngs. Joel, tell us a little bit about what you've been working on, specifically with PPP and the EIDL loans.
All right. Well, thank you, Andy, and I appreciate everybody attending today. And for those of you who are viewing this as a recording rather than the live event, I'll make sure that I have some slides on here that have my contact information. But before I go any further, I want to make sure that I say this. This information is current as of today. And the reason why I say that is that what we are finding is that things are changing on a pretty fast pace. This legislation that I'm going to talk about was actually passed in December of this past December on the 27th. There have been about 15 minor tweaks to the program since then. And in fact, President Biden just announced a latest tweak here just a few days ago, and we'll talk about that more in detail here a little bit later. So as an SBDC regional director, what we do is we provide confidential advising to business owners at no added cost to them. We act as an independent outside source for them, and so we do that in three different methodologies. One, we do one-on-one counseling and advising. We try to do some workshops or forums similar to what we're doing today. And then last but definitely not least is we connect you to other resource partners because no one person can know everything. I think one of our attendees today is Tom Trone, who's the chapter president and actually district chair of SCORE for Iowa. And the SCORE chapter is one of the three sources that the SBA uses to do outreach with. SBDCs are one, the SCORE chapters are second one, and the third one is a women's business center. Now, we don't have a local women's business center here in our eastern portion of the state, but we have one in Des Moines, and they actually serve the entire state of Iowa as a resource for women's specific small business issues. I need to mention also that there's something called the VBOC, which is the Veterans Business Operations Center. We don't have one of those in Iowa either, but I'm getting some feedback, Andy. I don't know what that's from. Anyway, our local Veterans Business Center is in St. Louis, and they also cover our Iowa territory, and they are a fantastic resource partner as well. So I want to make sure that everybody understands I'm not the SBA. SBA is actually the federal government program, and that's where the congressional monies pass through that program, and we are their local boots on the ground. Okay, so that's really the primary differentiation between the SBA and what SBDCs and what SCORE does. So all of our sourcing of today's information comes directly from the SBA.gov website. That screenshot that I just gave you and showing on the screen, that's of 7:40 this morning. So they keep changing things on their website, but that's what it looks like as of right now. And if you'll notice, that top yellow banner on that page says, hey, President Biden's announced some important changes to the PPP. Click here to learn more. And that's in regarding to the fact that the concern is that the very smallest of business owners, those who have 20 employees or less, by the way, that includes sole proprietors or one person, member LLCs, or an S corporation that just has one owner, that is included in that definition. For a 2-week window, all other applications have been ceased and halted to allow access for those smallest of small business owners to have access to the PPP program. So what is the PPP program? It stands for Paycheck Protection Program. It actually started last year in April, I think it was. And so people had the opportunity all through April of last year through September to help pay for payroll for their employees. If people did not access it at that time, so let's say in October somebody said, hey, you know what, I need to do that. Guess what? They were out of luck. However, in December, late December, Congress passed another round of PPP, and that opened up then for people who wanted to do PPP for the very first time. We call that their first draw. That opened up on January 11th. The program expires March 31st of 2021. So we got 33 days left. So again, this is information as of today's date. Congress right now is working through passing more stimulus monies, and so those technical details may change. But as of right now, people have until March 31st to go access PPP for the very first time if they did not do it last year. It's a forgivable loan. People all the time want to know, hey, is there any free money out there? Is there any grants? This is the program that they want to get involved if they want to get a forgivable loan. However, the newest wrinkle is President Biden announced that from February 24th through March 9th, they reserved that time period for people who had 20 or less employees to go access the program, thereby ensuring those small business owners that they would have access to that money. So if you are a business owner that has more than 20 employees and you didn't get your application prior to February 24th, you cannot access the PPP until Wednesday, March 10th. So that would then give you 3 weeks, 21 days to go get your loan. We'll talk about how to access that in just a moment. So some details. The PPP is actually a loan, but it's a forgivable loan. So there's some, and we're going to talk about how to get that forgiveness done. But what you're trying to do is you're trying to cover payroll for either an 8-week period or a 24-week period. Congress, when they passed this law, decided to give people the option to control the amount of money that they wanted to borrow. So they either gave them an 8-week option or a 24-week option. There's no collateral or personal guarantees required for this, and neither the government nor the lenders are going to charge any small business fees. So who gets to qualify? Basically, if you've got 500 employees or less, you're probably going to qualify. There's a couple of weird exceptions, but and if you're concerned that you are in one of those weird criterias, give me a call and we'll talk to you about that. So how do you apply? Well, again, you've got until March 31st to apply. And what you're going to do is you're going to go to your lender and say, hey, I want to go get a PPP loan. So they will work through all of the paperwork details with you. And I'm really pleased to say that the SBA has listened to the lenders, has listened to clients, and is really the process now is night and day difference than what it was 8 months ago. And so it's a much more streamlined process. People, they finally have gotten all the tweaks done, and it's really pretty straightforward. Basically, what you're going to need is tax returns. You're going to need your income statements. It's the kind of documentation that you would normally have as a small business owner for when you file taxes or anything like that. For anybody who got a PPP last year, the new legislation in December offered a second draw. And what that means is that people borrowed their money, they used their money, and now they're still in need. So that opened up a few days, that opened up on January the 13th. Again, this program expires on March 31st. Whether it's first draw or second draw, it's going to expire. It's the same kind of loan terms that we already have discussed about the first draw PPP loan. And we're going to talk about forgiveness here in just a minute, because this too is also a forgivable loan. Again, what you're using these PPP funds for is to pay payroll costs, including benefits. You can also pay, you also can have some incidental costs thrown in there, such as mortgage interest rate, rent, or utilities, or some worker protection costs related to COVID-19. They also increased the maximum loan amount, and what they did for the accommodation and food service businesses, what they did was they threw a multiplier on how much you could borrow for your payroll costs. And the reason for that is, if for those of you who are in the food service business, you're well aware that you're probably not paying minimum wage, that you use tip money to supplement people's wage levels. And so Congress, when they passed this section, they recognized that fact. And so if you're in the food service business, you get to actually have 2.5 times your average monthly payroll costs. So that's quite nice. However, to get the PPP second draw, what you have to show is that you had a 25% reduction in matching quarters between 2019 and 2020. So what that means is this. Here's a specific example. Let's say in 2019, your business did, and I'm just going to throw out a random number, it did $100,000 in revenue for this in the second quarter of 2019. 25% reduction means your revenue for the same quarter in 2020 could only be $75,000. If you didn't have that 25% reduction, you don't qualify. The good news is you could match it up to either the second quarter, third quarter, or fourth quarter. Again, you're comparing 2020 quarters to the 2019 quarters. So there are businesses out there that I'm pleased to say didn't have a revenue reduction. But what that means is that makes them ineligible for the PPP second draw. Again, you've got until March 31st to apply. There's a lot of lenders out there. One of the really fantastic things that we have here in Iowa is we have a lot of community lenders who are strong supporters of small businesses. And because of that, we've got a lot of people that are participating in it. If your particular lender is not doing a PPP program, please give me a call and we'll get you matched up with one. So how do you get forgiveness? Well, the forgiveness form is actually pretty straightforward. What you're going to do is you're going to show that the amount that you borrowed, at least 60% of that was paid for payroll costs. And if that's true, then the whole amount that you borrow gets forgiven. So remember, there's a little bit extra funds in there for mortgage interest or rent or utilities or benefits or COVID-19 materials. Even that amount gets forgiven. So that's fantastic news. And again, they've made the program, they've improved the program to the point now where the forgiveness documentation is pretty straightforward and it's pretty easy. That's just some details. Again, I'm going to provide this PowerPoint. I'll provide this PowerPoint to people, or you can watch the recording as well. So again, to apply for forgiveness, again, you go back to your lender, and they're going to start providing you with the forms that you'll need to be able to apply for that forgiveness. What forms are you going to need on your end? Well, you're going to need your payroll documentation. So that could be either bank account statements or third-party payroll reports. So it could be some tax forms, canceled checks, accounting statements, that kind of documentation. In addition to that, if you have the non-payroll expenses that we talked about, you're going to need a copy of the lender amortization schedule, because remember, it was mortgage interest that you could deduct, or you're going to need a copy of the lease agreement if you were making lease payments, copies of the utility bills, that kind of stuff. Pretty straightforward stuff. Again, pretty easy to document. You're going to submit your that forgiveness form to your PPP lender, and they're going to get that sent up then to the SBA. We want to make sure that people understand this, though. It's important to monitor that forgiveness, because what's going to happen is this. You know how with the IRS, you could be audited on your taxes. Guess what? You could be audited on your PPP loan forgiveness application process. Are the odds very high that you will be? No. That's not what they're trying to do. They're trying to streamline this, but I just got to tell you that there is a slim chance that you could be. So what you need to do is make sure that you stay in touch with your PPP lender to make sure that the forgiveness has actually gone through. Because what will happen is they audit it on the front side before they do the forgiveness. So if they're going to audit you, they'll stop the forgiveness process, do the audit, and then they'll complete the forgiveness portion. So just make sure you stay in touch with your lender. And you should be doing that anyway. For those of you last year, if you remember last year, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, the EIDL loan, you depending on when you applied for it, you might have gotten some advance money. And originally, in all the hurriness to try to get everything through and to try to get business owners help, what happened is there was some interpretation and then reinterpretation and another round of reinterpretation on whether or not that advance amount of money was held against you on your PPP. That's all been resolved. So anybody who had a deduction last year on that, there's now a process in place for that money to come back to you. So just want to let you know. Something that's happening more and more as we go through this. I've got clients that are calling me up saying, hey, they've been contacted by some phone number asking about their PPP loan, and people are saying, well, I didn't even take one out, and they got what looks like an official looking letter or a phone call, and it scares people, and rightly so. So if you got any questions, you can contact either on their website with disaster customer service at sba.gov or the 1-800 number, or there's if you have any questions at all about SBA lending, the SBA has an answer desk called answerdesk@sba.gov, and they have also a 1-800 number, and that's why I wanted to include that in today's presentation. So those are just kind of the highlights. I actually needed to change this slide. I actually wrote this slide 7 weeks ago, and at that point in time, there had been 3 updates in 7 days. Well, now we're up to like 17 updates in the last 45 days. So they keep trying to make the system and the processes better. It's just like anything else. It's like when you run your own business, you go, hey, this is how I think it's going to work. And then when you start doing it in practice, what it turns out is that you change some things. And the SBA it does a really good job of listening not only to customers who are getting loans, but also the lenders, and feedback from SCORE and from SBDC, boots on the ground kind of people. So I want to kind of wrap it up, just letting you know that there's more than just the federal programs out there. Iowa, through Iowa Economic Development, has some Iowa programs, so I put up their website. And I happen to be the Eastern Iowa SBDC, but we have a state program called America's SBDC, or I'm sorry, Iowa SBDC. And so we have on our state website, we have a list of other resources and other grants that are available throughout the state. And I'm not going to really talk about them so much today because things change. So as an example, the one of the latest initiatives that the governor announced was help to restaurant slash bar slash food accommodation kinds of services, where there was a short period of time where people could go out and get a $25,000 grant if they had economic impact, a negative economic impact to their business. Well, those kinds of grant opportunities, usually there's a 4 to 6 week window of time to apply, and that's already expired already. So so that's why I'm not really going to go through a lot, because it's our job to, when we see something pop up, we reach out to our client list. I work with 350 to 400 clients a year. We reach out to our clients and go, hey, this grant just popped open, and we send out an email to them and let people be aware of that. So again, a lot of what we do is we are connecting people to resource partners. And so that, we want business owners to be able to focus on their business. We don't want them to have to worry about how to navigate through things. And so that's one of the things that we do. So again, here's my contact information. You can reach me, phone, email, you can tweet at me, you can hit me on LinkedIn. You can call Andy and say, hey, Andy, I forgot how to get hold of Joel, and he'll connect you. So anyway, so that's my presentation for today, and I'll be happy to answer questions.
Yeah, Joel, thank you so much. For those of you that have questions, there is a chat feature in Microsoft Teams. You can just click the little conversation bubble and type in your question. Also, you can raise your hand. I do have the option to just unmute yourselves and ask that question as well. So we do have one question from the CRDC President and CEO, Aaron Cole. Aaron?
Yes, good morning, everybody. And Joel, thanks so much for joining us today. Really appreciate that information. I think it's important, since we are recording this and we'll be sharing this out to a much broader audience, over the next couple of days and week or so. I want people to understand what you do with entrepreneurs and small business startups. I know that wasn't wholly the focus of today's presentation. But since we have a couple of minutes, I thought maybe you could give a brief overview of the work you do sort of on a daily basis, working with entrepreneurs throughout our community and even existing small businesses to help them grow their business.
Well, thanks, Aaron. I appreciate that question, and I want to thank you, folks, for what you do for the Clinton area. So specifically, what I do on a daily basis. So just yesterday is a good example. Yesterday, I met with two people who were trying to start up a small business. One was doing custom woodworking, and the other one was opening up their own trucking firm. So that was two people who are trying to start up a business. I dealt with somebody who was in the middle of trying to buy a $750,000 building, and then had two follow-up meetings with their lender and the prospective seller. Because oftentimes what I do is educate people on some of the technical issues of going through a transaction. I'm not an attorney, I'm not an accountant, I'm not a banker anymore, but um, because I work with 400 business owners in any given year, what I communicate to people what I see happens with other business owners when they're trying to either grow or expand their business or exit their business. I just got I just spent a couple of $100 getting my certified exit planning advisor certification. And so I'm in the middle of working through several business owners who are trying to figure out how to exit their business over the next 6 months to 3 years, helping them lay out strategies, helping them making sure that they're bringing in an attorney when it's appropriate, the accountants when it's appropriate, and then how to grow their business. For the person who's going to be 3 years exiting, we're trying to figure out how to grow their business over the next 3 years so that they can maximize their value as they sell their business. So when I say 400 business owners, I see probably 15 people a month who are trying to start a business, and the rest of it is existing business owners. So and then I should say what counties I cover. I cover Clinton and Jackson and Scott and Muscatine counties. And so those are the day-to-day types of activities. And then I occasionally do workshops. In fact, I'm putting together a program with Clinton, DeWitt, Maquoketa, Bellevue, and Muscatine chamber directors we're putting together a series of workshops that we'll be rolling out here this spring and for the summer. So besides doing the one-on-one counseling, we do workshops. People say, well, how can you get all of this done? Well, I sometimes that's a challenge, but the nice thing is I've been meeting. I've got a client that can only meet with me at Wednesdays at 8 o'clock because they've got 3 business partners and the 3 schedules. So for the last 3 weeks, I've been having 8 o'clock virtual meetings on Wednesday evenings. I've got clients that I meet with on Sundays, Saturdays. What we try to work out mutually beneficial calendar times. But what the beautiful thing is that SCORE has 35 members who are active in their volunteer efforts. And I'm not shy about reaching out to Tom and his crew of SCORE volunteers because, again, we're all in this together to help small business owners succeed, whether it's a startup or whether it's existing business owners. And so when I get stretched too thin, then I reach out to them. My former background is a lender. And so one of the things that I do really well is help my clients get access to capital. A typical SBDC director does about $3.5 million of lending assistance every given year. So what are we 2 months into this calendar year, and I'm already at 4.6 million. So I'll end up doing about 12 million, about 4 times the amount of lending assistance a year. And part of that reason is I've got some fantastic banking relationships. I work with 43 different lenders in the area. And so there are sometimes, with my client's permission, I can have conversations with the lender that the client may not want to be having those conversations with the lender, and vice versa. Sometimes the lender's like, Joel, you need to help our client, our mutual client, understand what our issues are. And so a lot of times I just act as, again, an educational mouthpiece to try to help everybody get to their goal. And so that's kind of my day-to-day and my month-to-month and what I do.
Joel, I'm going to ask you, just for the sake of those who will eventually be watching this again, if they don't know what SCORE is, can you just briefly talk? You mentioned that you partner with SCORE and that they have volunteers down the Quad Cities. They do now cover Clinton County as well, so we've been working with them. But if you could just take a minute to give a brief description of who they are and what they do.
Sure. So it used to be they were the core of retired executives, and that's how the RE got in there. And that's primarily what they are. Is they are primarily retired either former business owners or former executives who are trying to give back to their community. And so what they do is they volunteer their time and efforts to help people with business planning, to help them just give them advice, mentoring. What I really like about and when I say their physical location is in the Quad Cities, but yes, you're absolutely right. They now cover they cover Muscatine. They've got members in Muscatine. They got members now in Clinton County, so they cover Clinton County. They've done a fantastic job of expanding their reach and in fleshing out their ranks with really highly professional people that've got some fantastic backgrounds. Some of them are retired Deere executives. Some, again, are retired bankers. Some are retired accountants. Some are just retired business owners. So every one of them brings a special background to what they're good at. And so, again, that's really the power of not only SCORE, but the SBDCs. I've got as Andy mentioned, I've got 13 other centers around the state. So I'm not a social media marketing guru, but Sue, who's in Council Bluffs, she is. And so guess what? Whenever I get stuck on social media stuff, I get my clients in contact with Sue because, and so what it does is, again, it's a connectivity with all resource partners. It's listening to what the client needs or wants or is looking for and finding them the right solution so that business owner doesn't have to spend their time trying to figure out how, or, to either read something or go find something. So.
Perfect. Thank you. No, you obviously provide an invaluable service to people in our community. So we're certainly very grateful for that. Just wanted to make sure that people understood the full scope of what you do in your partner network, which I think is also critically important. So I'm going to pause there and see if anybody else has any questions. I don't see any hands raised on the side.
So I'm going to make a comment, Aaron, because I know of your background a little bit. So we've now gotten several people that have been certified in export assistance. And, one of the ways to grow your business is when you're having local issues is to figure out, do you have something you can export? And so, that's just, again, people go, well, how can I function in this COVID-19? Well, you know what? Let's look at, can you export? And so one of the things that, it's just, again, what we try to help people understand is options to succeed to get to their end goal. What's your end goal? Now let's talk about different ways that you may not have thought about. So.
No, I agree. And speaking about exporting, we partner closely, as you know, with the Iowa Economic Development Authority, which has an international trade office in Des Moines that covers the entire state, and they focus on exporting, helping Iowa companies export overseas, and they have contract offices overseas in certain markets. So it makes it that much easier for an Iowa company of any size, or it could be an entrepreneur, but certainly with an existing product, to be able to export overseas. So we have that expertise. So I think that's why it's important for people on the call to realize that even though we don't see physically these offices in Clinton every day, these resources do exist. They do cover Clinton County, and we can and do take advantage of them. I think knowledge is power. The more people know that these resources like Joel and what he does exist, or the SCORE chapter out of the Quad Cities that now covers us, and IEDA itself, which helps companies export together with, Joel and the SCORE chapter, that we have multiple resources that we can actually tap into. So part of us holding this roundtable is literally to educate people. And again, this is going to go out to a much broader audience, that we just want to make sure that anyone in Clinton thinking about growing a business, starting a business, what does it mean to own a business, that we can help you, and that those resources do exist.
Something that has just bubbled up, NIAC and my peer in Dubuque have received some grant monies to provide a help desk. So people that, and I know that it's covering Clinton and Jackson counties now, and that literally has just, I mean, that's bubbled up. It's brand new. And so I think you'll be hearing more about that. And again, it's just another way for people to not have to figure out the answers on their own. And so I'm really looking forward to that getting implemented full-fledged and to being rolled out to the community as a whole. So.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much, Joel. I don't see any other hands raised, but I'm going to pause one more second to see if anybody has any questions, and then maybe we can wrap up. Okay, I don't see any more. Joel, thank you so much. You did a fantastic job. We look forward to hopefully seeing you in person, but I know that my office, staff in my office, and even in the chamber, we're participating in webinars on a regular basis. They're being offered pretty much weekly at this point in time on different topics related to small business development or entrepreneurship. I'm just going to mention that the Wilson building in downtown Clinton is going to be developed. There's already a company in the process of doing that. They have plans for a business incubator space on the first floor, including potentially industrial kitchen space that people could also use. So we're super excited about that. That would be the first time in Clinton that we would have existing, startup space or business incubator space for companies. So I'm sure we'll be talking to you about that, our friends down in the SCORE chapter, just to make sure that that company is going to have assistance in managing and having access to resources that they can offer to any company or any entrepreneur in Clinton that's going to want to take advantage of that when it is up and running, which probably won't be until later this year, if not early in 2022. But really exciting stuff on the horizon.
Well, I've got to say that things are going well, I think, for Clinton. I've got 3 different new clients over the last 5 weeks that are looking at occupying or buying buildings in Clinton. So to me, that just shows that we've had some pent-up demand over the last year because of COVID-19, and people are starting to realize, hey, you know what? There's opportunity in this, and so we're seeing actually across a state, but specifically Clinton, I'm seeing a huge growth in people trying to do some very fun and exciting initiatives. So
that's fantastic. That's good news. That's good news for us to hear. All right, Andy, I know you're still on. Is there anything you want to add before we wrap up?
No, you both did a great job. Thank you so much for joining us, both Aaron and Joel, for today's Clinton Region Business Roundtable. Again, this has been recorded, and I will send it out to those who have registered via Eventbrite. If you have any questions regarding Joel's services, please reach out to him directly or contact the Clinton Regional Development Corporation. We'll make sure to put you in touch. Thanks again, Joel. I appreciate it, and thanks everybody for tuning in.
Thank you.
All right.
Have a good weekend.
See ya.
See you, everyone.